everybody. Nice to have you here. And today we will slowly start to dive into the different Adobe Commerce Magento use cases that I have on my, let's say, daily routine. As I'm not developing so much last years, yes, finally, I working with a lot of projects at the same time where I behave like an architect, so I hit a lot of use cases. And those use cases very often quite common, so they're quite similar, repeatable from project to project, and sometimes they're like fully unique. Today we will talk about the webhooks. The webhooks is like super common. It's almost at every project I'm working on have more or less similar approach or similar requirements related to the webhooks. It's not always like pure webhooks, but very often just some way of exporting data or propagating data out of Adobe Commerce Magento to external system. And there can be different use cases. So the common one when the client is coming to you and telling you, hey, I want to know every time the customer been registered on Magento system. And I also want to know every time when the new order been placed on Magento system. And for that, here's an API, here's your endpoint, hey, just use it, here you are. There can be different ways. So for example, the most common way is that customer telling you, hey, I need this set of parameters, so please send it to them, send them to me. The another one, which I really like, it's when the customer says, hey, I just need to be notified. So I really need a webhook functionality, and this webhook have to send me notification with a customer ID and with an order ID, and then I will pull everything myself because Magento has an API available, so he can just take this ID and then pull information he needs. That's the best approach I would found, because then you not really develop the fixed body of requests, and if customer need to extend it in some manner and tell, hey, I need this additional parameter to be exported or this data being exported, then you don't care, honestly, because there's, hey, here's an API, just take it from the API. So customer is responsible for the getting data out of your system, and that's what I like most. And this more or less working in a standard, let's say, webhook approach. That's when you just get some data from the system, and then you send in it to the URL the client provided, as he claims usually like, hey, here's the webhook URL for the customers, for example, and I expected the first name, last name, email address, for example. So how it's possible to build with Adobe Commerce? Let's have a look. Okay, it can be multiple solutions. And I just want to shortly describe some of them, and then you can just decide yourself what you want to use. So let's start from the most basic use cases. So just imagine you have the system, right? I mean, that's what you usually has, and you already reached the point when the system is ready and you already started developing it. Oh, so much fun to work with Adobe Commerce, oh, cool. And now you have this requirement which is described, okay, I want to know every time when the new registration happens on the system, and the customer want to know every time new product, oh no, sorry, let's do with registration and new order, new product, whatever, 3 use cases. And the system which customer provided and telling, hey, I want to get an info here. So here's you the URL. You can just send the request to this URL, and yeah, I will be quite happy. So what our best, like usual expected way is that we're doing something like following. Bam, so data coming in, and that's it. But how we basically do it with Adobe Commerce Magento, by the reason they don't have out-of-box functionality, let's say it's a plain installation, that allow you to do it. What are you usually doing? Let's take this one. So you usually build in the module. You build in the module, putting it into the app code vendor folder, you developing it, and this module is listening to some event, plugin, observer, whatever you want, collect the required data, and then combine this data and send this data to third-party system. So it will look more or less like that. Here is basically REST call, if it's a REST. I mean, can be anything else, but in most common cases, let's say it's a REST call. That looks simple, right? Yes. More or less, yes, but this also means you creating the new module, you register a new module, you doing a bunch of functionality. If the customer expects the fixed body, you need to create this code that generate this body and send it. Any downside? Yes, always. I mean, it's code you develop, you need to maintain it. Every Adobe Commerce Magento updates, you need to take care about this one. And technically, yeah, it's up to you what's happened the next. So that's quite valid solution. I mean, why not? It works. I also did quite a lot. What else you can do? You can technically just find some extension and buy it and install it or get it for free somewhere on GitHub. I mean, you can go to Magento Marketplace, for example, and search for something here. Honestly, never did it before recording this video, so not sure if there anything good one. I guess they need to work a bit on the relevance of the API or of the search Webhook subscription. Nice. Or the webhooks. Yeah, okay. So there are some modules. You definitely can use it. That's even some free ones. That's repository that been a HIFT. Yes. Okay. So, like example, there are ways to have it. So basically just to get an extension, have it installed, and then it will work for you. Again, the same problems or possible issues. It's maintainability, update for future versions, and be reliable on third-party modules. Okay, what else we can do? That's quite common use cases. Let's have a look on use case number 2. This use case, unfortunately, would work for Adobe Commerce only. The reason is that there is already a module that's allow you to have a webhooks, and it's available for commerce, unfortunately by license only. So it's somewhere here. Yeah, that's a module. You can install it. It's public, not publicly. It's available if you have Adobe Commerce license. So you just cannot get it without having a license. Maybe I'm wrong here, you can get it without having a license, but you're not allowed to use it if you don't have Adobe Commerce license, at least on my knowledge. Which works in the similar manner I just described before, and that's what you usually build yourself. You have an event, you send in the webhooks to external system, and you're receiving an answer. So it looks quite easy. I have it installed in one of the projects, so it's basically on a webhooks area here, and you also can configure them out of interface, which is quite nice. You also can use environment variables to get it working, so basically to not define the URL here. And yeah, you can define the fields you want to export, which is, I guess, quite fancy, headers, some rules, and it's also manageable quite easy by XML. So basically you can also define it from the XML if you want to have it on a code level. So yeah, so the functionality is quite well done. We're using it on our projects. Yeah, only problem, as I mentioned, is that it's licensed, so it's basically Adobe Commerce related topic. I would tell you we tried it on open source just for the sake of interest, and it works there. So not sure if Adobe would be happy to make it open source somewhere in the future, but also, as I know, they are working on this one into the direction of Adobe I/O Runtime usage also. So it means, I guess it's like pure commerce focused. So, which other use cases we have? And we have quite similar to this one, but the use case which does not require to have the module, like to have this particular module, sorry I'm wrong, is to use an Adobe I/O events for the Adobe Commerce. And that's a module which already coming out of the box with Adobe Commerce. Again, unfortunately, it's only Adobe Commerce related. And in this case, it's using Adobe I/O Runtime. So we're already going to a bit of the direction of the microservices. And this module is allow you to configure the events or to subscribe to events. It's happening quite easily. I guess I also link it somewhere here. Give me a second. So that's already working with using the Adobe App Builder. So you would need to have an access to it. I mean, you usually have it. If you're Adobe Commerce customer, you can request it. It's for free, more or less, for Adobe Commerce customers. And you can get access to it. And in this way, you basically just creating a new project within a builder, and then you're able to configure the webhooks. The configuration is quite easy. So technically, you install in the module on your system, and then there has been Magento commands popping up there where you can generate events and you can subscribe to the different events. So by adding into the config.php file, you defining the events you want to be subscribed to. Let's have a look shortly if I'll find it here quickly. Yeah, so like example. So you do event subscribe and tell, hey, every time the product been saved, so that's an observer, I want that this event been published onto Adobe I/O. So it works in a manner that you are not sending the webhooks out of the commerce system directly. You subscribe into events. So you subscribe into some events which happen within your Adobe Commerce system, let's say product save, customer login, customer registration, order place, and so on. And then this event will be published into Adobe I/O Runtime. And then you can consume this event. So in this, that's where the builder is coming into the place. But what's nice, you don't need to build a special application to make it work. You basically can just go into your builder interface and let's do it. So that's one of the projects we have up and running already. You have here a list of events. You can be subscribed. That's events I'm currently subscribed to. And what I can do, I can, let's say, add a new event, go to commerce events, then choose the environment, and then basically I'm telling, hey, okay, I have here events, observer, customer, save after, authorization layer, some test name, and then you can define what I do. So what are you doing with it? So you can define the webhook, just defining the URL, and then the Adobe Runtime will bypass your request to this webhook URL. You can define the runtime action. That's when you define something which you develop within this builder application. Means if you need to make any custom modification with request and you don't want to create the Magento module for that, you can do it here. Giving quite a lot of flexibility, honestly. One of the reasons also to use it is, let's say, you don't need Magento developer for that. You can just have a front-end developer who will create an application for you and will do any modification with requests that you will receive. We using it for the snippets, basically. So we have a webhook which expect not the data from Magento, like a pure JSON, let's say, product information, but expected the snippet, which is HTML snippet, which has the image, title, text box. And we developed this small app builder action which creating this, so it's receiving data from Magento, from Adobe Commerce, then convert it to the HTML snippet and then send it to the next step. So that's and then you can just define here actions that have to be called. Yeah. And in our case, let's say if you're looking at the webhooks, you just define the URL here. Here's one note I want to highlight is that this webhook implementation follow the webhook standards, because we had multiple use cases when customers said, hey, I have a webhook, can you please do it? So the webhook standard means when you configure it, the first request is coming is a challenge request. So it's a GET request to the URL, and it expect, which send you the challenge code, and it expect you send this challenge code back, so it's validated that the webhook is available and running correctly. When the customer giving you an endpoint and said, hey, that's a webhook URL, please use it, that doesn't mean it's a webhook URL. It can be just some REST API endpoint, or just controller to another part of software, which means it doesn't behave like a webhook. It will not work with a challenge. And if challenges fail, it will not work here. That's quite an important point to know, because we had these use cases when we could not use the webhook here because the client's URL does not work with the challenges. Yeah, and then after you're doing it, you just basically saving it and then started to work here. And you can also have the event browser, so that's something where you can read all events that's coming in and to see them. You can also have debug trace, and that's something where you will see the output. I don't know if I have something here. Yeah, that's one of the examples. So of debug trace, and that's customer safe after, and then you can see what's coming in, and then you can also see what was the response of the action. So then you can react more or less and fix it. It also will send email notification if something doesn't work. Yeah, that was a short one, and basically that's it. So I shortly went through the webhooks possibilities within Magento, didn't dive into the code. If you want to dive into the code, there is a ChatGPT, there is a Google for you, there is a cool Magento community available, so just ask your questions there. I will be happy for the feedback, what is really interesting for you to know more about, because I have a feeling while explaining the webhook, I touched a little bit from a lot of elements which quite fresh into the Adobe Commerce Magento world, especially related to the microservices, Adobe App Builder, Runtime, and all this stuff. So if you want to know something more specific about every of those elements, please let me know. I will be really happy to share. Please don't forget to share, like it, comment. I will be really happy to hear the feedback from you. And yeah, I hope to see you on the next videos. Bye bye.